I appreciate it,
I
mate.
was gonna say something about? I don't hear anybody criticizing Pep Guardiola. No City fan, no rivals, nobody.
Go on,
There
Mo.
was one City fan who
As
said,
hold on,
Go on, Mo. Go on, Mo.
as
Stand.
people are scared of, yes, he is the best coach in the last 10 years. Yes, he won a triple. But we're analyzing the first 17 games. He has a squad as equal as the squad last year in terms of numbers. I'm not talking about quality.
Cook.
Some of the players he has, it's his choice. He's the one who chose to sign Nunes.
Yes.
Kovacic, they bid for Declan Rice. It didn't work out. You have to have alternative. Guardiola is playing well, to be honest. But Man United fans in the same mouth will tell you Guardiola is playing out of position. But then in the next one, when you tell them, so whose fault is that? They're like silent. They don't want to tell you anything. Pep Guardiola is playing Alvarez in the 10 because he doesn't want him to leave, and Foden is getting better on the right. Whose fault is that? They are silent. Nobody wants to criticize Pep. Well, I'm here and I'm telling you, this complacency, this thing that is happening is on Pep. He is the best coach. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but the same thing we're going to have on Jurgen Klopp last year when most of the players were not performing and everybody criticized Klopp. When Mikel Arteta makes one mistake and people want to slaughter him in the media, let's have the same energy. It's not only on the players. The players are making mistakes, yes. But when Pep Guardiola sit in a game and make the first substitution after 2-1, 77 minutes, Manchester City normally would see out games with ease, would move the ball around, especially at the Etihad. But they didn't. They had one shot and they still had 70% possession, but it looked like empty. And every time Crystal Palace got the ball, they tried for it, right? That's why at the end it paid off. My point is, at the end, people, it's all right to criticize Pep Guardiola. He's not God, and he's not your dad. It's all right. You can criticize him. It's fine. Nobody's going to tell you you're not a fan. If you do that, no one is going to tell you you're not a fan. It's okay. You can do it.
I think, to be fair, I have been very consistent with that. I've said that Alvarez shouldn't be playing in midfield. Walker shouldn't be on the pitch. Walker shouldn't be our lead player in respect of minutes. And by definition, I have been criticizing Guardiola. So I'm not going to put myself into that particular camp you're referring to. I don't buy complacency as a reason. I think that's too easy. I think last season it was complacency, and Guardiola came out and said as much. He said, "I don't recognize my players," and then thereafter, the players got to kick up their ass. I think it's more basic than that. I touched on the lack of leadership, but as Mo's pointed, that it's really easy issues to resolve. You just don't play Alvarez in midfield. If Haaland's available, you don't play Alvarez. Clearly, Kyle Walker, a player who was a bit part player in our treble win last season, played around 50% of the minutes. He's got more minutes this season than Ederson. No one is playing more football this season than Kyle Walker. Someone here tell me what he's offering. Nothing. No, we know he doesn't do anything going forwards. He used to be associated with being solid defensively, as I think it was Sam Mo pointed out. At the 87th minute, there was a Crystal Palace player who just absolutely burnt him for pace, like a substitute or whatever, burnt him for pace and strength, and Rodri had to come and bail him out. So he's not even offering anything defensively anymore. And if you go look at like the average positions of Man City players in this season, if you go look at like the amount of like the expected threats on the pitch, there's basically none being created in that right-sided area, where that's Kyle Walker's area. And it's not his fault. He ain't that guy. It's so easily resolved by just not playing him and playing someone like a Kanji in there. Kanji, who was the reason why we scored that goal in the Champions League final. And this is the point that I always come back to. If you think of last season, the Champions League final against Inter Milan, obviously Pep's going to put out what he made the big mistake against Chelsea. He's not going to make that mistake again. He's going to put out his best team. Did Kyle Walker start that game, or was he left on the bench? He was left on the bench, and it was Stones and Akanji in that right-sided area. Mm-hmm. That tells me that we know, and he knows, that he shouldn't be playing him, and yet he is. And that is a mistake.
New contract. He might have gotten a new contract with some guarantees.
And maybe that's absolutely right. Maybe that was like Pep said.
I don't want to put this all on Kyle Walker. I get it. He was bad. He looked terrible. He was one of the worst performances. But there was also bad performances on the pitch from a certain Julian Alvarez, who has seen a slight dip in his form since I would say maybe a couple 2 months now, since the first international break, where he was looking really good, scoring goals, getting assists, doing everything he could do from that midfield position. And if I'm not mistaken, last game he started up top, and that was probably one of his worst performances.
Yeah, I'll let Alvarez off a little bit, and I will pivot more to blaming Pep, to be fair on that, because he's been playing midfield mainly this season, and then suddenly we're throwing him back up at striker. So I don't think he's quite got back into the mode of being a striker. Like he dropped deep so many times in that game. I still think he's got like the midfield switch on in his head. So yeah, Alvarez didn't play well either. But yeah, again, I'm not just talking about the Palace game. I'm talking about basically every single game where Walker features. Nothing. I've described him as like this sort of chasm of creativity where everything is just sucked towards him because he doesn't do anything.
Do you guys feel like you made a mistake in the summer getting rid of too much experience at once?
No, not just last. I think they've done it the last 2 summers. They lost Zinchenko, they lost Gabriel Jesus, they lost Mahrez, Sterling.
The only one which I think was an objective mistake was Gundogan. That was stupid.
I think it's deep.
It's a mistake. On top of that, though, again, this is the first time, in my opinion, maybe even in you could argue there's some old City teams that were great. Maybe one old team. Again, unless you've ever had a great team at your football club, a proper, genuine great team, the likelihood of when the players leave, you getting individuals in that are as good, history shows us is very rare. It's very rare. All of that, Inter have had great teams. When that great team falls apart, either through age or being sold, the next team is never as good. Happened to Liverpool. Their great teams were never as good. United, our next teams were never as good. Even when you look at like Real Madrid and Barcelona, they still win things in their league because they've got a monopoly. But they're great teams. Look, when's the last time Barca were great? They were never replacing Messi. They were never replacing Xavi. And they're still not replacing Xavi and Iniesta.
Well, that's why we wanted.
They may never be that good again, even with the money they've got, because that's the history of football, and it seems to get ignored. One team's going to stay at the top forever and a day. It's never happened in England before. And the reason it's rarer here than anywhere else is because the money's more even.
But you know what pisses me off, Terry?
It's hard.
What pisses me off is this mentality that they're just going to click into gear and win 15 straight or 10 straight and win the league. Like it just happens every year. It's happened before. It's going to happen again. We can see by their squad, it's not the same squad that was able to win those games consecutively. After speaking about the mentality and all these things that we've spoken about, what makes people think that this City team is just going to get Kevin De Bruyne back, everything's going to be back to normal, and they're going to click into gear and win 15 straight again?
That's why I think Pep Guardiola is not getting the criticism that he deserves, because everyone's just expecting them to just have one game and winning games. Oh, they do it every year, but like you can't base this season on previous years. It's a new season. You can say, oh, he's done it before, but that doesn't account to this season. It's a new season. Teams are better. Players are different. Personnel is different. Coaches are better. It's not going to be the same thing. But I understand why people think, oh, it's just going to click into gear because they've done it before. But I don't think that accounts to now.
It could absolutely happen, but two things have to happen for that to transpire. In the first instance, we can't have more key injuries or suspensions to Rodri, De Bruyne, John Stones. So they all have to be available, which is a big if. And then secondly, the Kyle Walker experiment must end, because I promise you, we will not win the league title with Walker as our top minutes maker when literally nothing is happening there. We become so oriented to attack down the left or central.
KDB's the big one. I think there's way too much pressure on his return. You have no idea what state Kevin De Bruyne is going to be back, going to return back, and it's 2 major hamstring injuries in the space of 6 months. He's 30. He's like 32, 33 now, and all the pressure is KDB comes back and drags his City team to a title. What if KDB needs a bit of time? What if De Bruyne needs a bit of time to get himself ready? Then what happens? The City just end up in a spot where they go, we can't do anything. It's over.
But guess what? Man City fans are going to tell me every single day, wait until May. Don't speak until May. You could be out of the league title by February.
And that's fine. Look, we're going to go to some super chat.